Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. And guess what? No cat today. My wife's got it in another room just to make sure that that didn't happen again. Beautiful cat. We both love cats. I would tell you a story about my wife, a former a former cat hater who has now become the cat lady. But I better not do that today, okay? I'll just leave it there. So anyway, it's a really, really funny story. So anyway, welcome back to Morning Musings. As I promised you yesterday, and what we're doing here is seeking to demonstrate that Matthew chapter 25:31 is really, as we have firmly established, that it is based upon Joel 2 and 3. It is based upon Isaiah chapters 2 through 4. But in both of those prophecies, both of those prophecies of the last days, the coming of the Lord, they predicted the vindication of the martyrs at the day of the Lord. So if Matthew 25:31 and following is based upon the Old Testament prophecies of the last days and the vindication of the martyrs, then that means, guess what? That Matthew 25:31 and following is about the vindication of the martyrs at the last days, day of the Lord. And what we're seeking to prove now is that this entire doctrine of the last days vindication of the martyrs had to do with AD 70. And that therefore means that since Matthew 25:31 and following is based upon the Old Testament prophecies of the last days, day of the Lord, vindication of the martyrs, and that was in AD 70, then that means that Matthew chapter 25:31 and following was fulfilled in AD 70. I shared with you yesterday the parable of the vineyard and the wicked husbandman, of how the master of the vineyard sent his servants to those workers. They beat them. He sent more workers. They beat them. He sent his son. They killed him. And so Jesus posed the question to the Jews, what will that master of the vineyard do when he comes? Look, folks, there's no way out of this. Jesus is describing the judgment that was coming on the Jews for persecuting the followers of Christ, for killing Jesus. He was predicting his coming in the judgment of those who would kill him. I think we know when that was, don't we? I think we know who put Jesus to death, don't we? Certainly wasn't the Romans as the chief culprits. They were not the one that instigated that. You know, Pilate said, go judge him according to your law. Shifting the focus, shifting the blame. I wash my hands of the guilt of the blood of this innocent man. To which they responded, let his blood be on us and on our children. And so it was. That's what the book of Revelation is all about. Anyway, the next parable I want to examine that focuses on the vindication of the martyrs. And make no mistake, folks, as I've already suggested to you, I'm kind of jumping into the middle of the New Testament passages that anticipated and foretold the coming of the Lord for the vindication of the martyrs in that generation. I probably should have started at Matthew 16, but I didn't. But that's what it's all about. So anyway, Matthew chapter 22. A king made a great wedding banquet for his son. And he sent out his messengers to call those who had been invited. Now, there's something about the Greek here that you need to know because it's really important. Those who were invited had already been invited. Okay? The wedding wasn't something taking them by surprise. They had already been informed there was going to be a wedding. Now they're being told, all things are ready, come to the feast. Now, why is that important? It is important because you see, the promise of the wedding feast was an old covenant promise made to old covenant Israel, because in Hosea chapter 5 through 6, Hosea chapter 2, the Lord divorced the 10 northern tribes for their spiritual adultery. And yet, he predicted the time was going to come, which of course was the last days, Hosea chapter 3, 3 through 5. He predicted the time of the last days in which he said, I'm going to make a covenant of peace with you. I'm going to call you out to the valley of Achor. There, I'm going to speak peacefully with you. There, I will enter into a covenant of peace with you, a covenant with the birds of the air and with the beasts of the field. And I will betroth you to me once again. I will betroth you to me in righteousness. I will betroth you to me forever. Here, in Hosea, you have the marriage, the initial wedding. You have the divorce because of spiritual adultery. Write her a bill of divorcement. She is not my wife. I am not her husband, said the Lord. But you have the expression of marvelous grace, in which God said in the last days, I'm going to gather you back. Now, God made it clear he was not going to restore them nationalistically as a nationalistic geopolitical kingdom. The Lord said, I'm going to destroy the kingdom of Israel, and it will never rise again, but I will not destroy the family of Israel. And thus, in Amos chapter 9, the Lord promised the time was coming in which he would restore again the tabernacle of David, which is fallen down, so that all men might then call on the name of the Lord. But the point of it is, this whole theme of the wedding, you see, is related to Israel, who had been married and divorced, but was to be married to Yahweh in the last days. And if you want to read one of the most beautiful chapters on this whole theme, go to Isaiah chapter 62. I mean, it's just, the language there is absolutely beautiful. The Lord says, you know, just like he said in Hosea, which is a parallel and contemporary prophet with Isaiah, he says, you're not going to call me anymore Aishi, master. You're going to call me husband. And so in Isaiah, the Lord predicted the time in which you're going to call me Beulah. You remember the song, Oh Beulah Land? Sweet Beulah Land. I'm not going to sing. I'm sure I'd lose all of you if I did. But this is where this came from. This would be the time in which the Lord would restore, from the Greek word in the Septuagint, obviously, from the Greek word diorthosis, to set things back in their original condition, to make things right. So the Lord was predicting at the time of the wedding, God was going to put things right. And he said it would be the time of the coming of the Lord. He would bring his reward with him, and he would judge. Jesus, in Matthew 16, 27 and 28, quotes from Isaiah chapter 62, 10 to 12, and said it was going to be fulfilled in his generation, before all those people died. Folks, this is the concept of the wedding. Does the word wedding appear in Matthew 16, 27, 28? No, it does not. But guess what? Matthew 16, 27, 28 is taken directly from Isaiah 62, which is a prophecy of the wedding. Do you see the fallacy of arguing? Well, I don't see the word whatever over here. I don't see the word kingdom. I don't see the word temple. I don't see the word whatever, 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 whatever. Therefore, it cannot be what Preston is talking about. You know, it's really sad to me when desperation that reaches such heights completely controls a person's, almost their persona. Point of fact is, and by the way, scholar after scholar after scholar agrees, okay, that Matthew 16, 27, 28 is drawing directly from Isaiah chapter 62. Yeah, you can disagree with that. And you can say, well, I don't believe they're parallel. Okay, that's fine. But you got to prove your case. And just saying, well, I don't accept that, doesn't prove a thing, does it? You know, I could sit here and I could say, I believe in the Loch Ness Monster. And you say, well, what's your evidence for that? Well, I don't really have any scientific evidence for it, but it's true. And if you were a skeptic, you'd go, sorry, Preston, you got to give me some proof. Well, that's right. You've got to give proof. So, to carry on, the point of fact is that Matthew chapter 22 is about the time of the wedding, Yahweh's wedding with Israel. Now, here you got to keep this in mind because this is so incredibly powerful. And in my book, we shall meet him in, get that glare off there. We shall meet him in the air, the wedding of the King of Kings. I developed this extensively. That is, Yahweh was not going to remarry just the 10 northern tribes. He was going to, first of all, you got to catch the power of this, folks. He was going to divorce and kill Judah and Jerusalem, along with Benjamin, of course, just like he had divorced and killed the 10 northern tribes. He said in Hosea chapter 6 and verse 11, in speaking about Israel's harvest of being destroyed as a nation, and he says, Judah will also have her harvest. Destruction, death of the kingdom for the 10 northern tribes. Judah would have her harvest in the last days. And once again, that's what Revelation's all about. And again, I develop all of this really extensively in this book. We shall meet him in the air, the wedding of the King of Kings. Okay, so, well, I tell you what, I cannot develop this enough. I apologize. I want to spend a little more time on Matthew chapter 22 because this is so critical. But Matthew 22 is very clearly about the time of the vindication of the martyrs. Now, before we get there, kind of give you a heads up of where I'm going tomorrow on Wednesday, I don't know of anybody that denies that Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following is the time of the wedding. Hello. Okay, Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following is the time of the wedding. But Matthew chapter 22 is the time of the wedding. Just connect the dots. There's a straight line between Matthew 22 and Matthew 25, 31 and following. In the meantime, I'm out of time. I will see you on the flip side.